3, 2, 1, start. So the first map that I decided to do was the states of Nigeria, and the reason that I did this is because it's one of the largest and most difficult ones, especially to memorize. The reason, well, yeah, that's pretty much the reason that I did it first. The reason that it can be so difficult to memorize is because a lot of the names are really similar to one another, and they're shaped similarly, I guess, is how I want to put it. But it gets a lot easier once you memorize it to be able to distinguish it the more you do it. So next is the Mediterranean countries and islands. And this actually isn't specific to Africa. It's in more like maps, more categories. So this is also in, I believe, Asia 100% and Europe 100% because it has countries in both Asia and Europe. But it's rough. This is probably the one that I struggled on the most, mostly because of the islands. I pretty much have the countries down, but I thought that was not that bad. This is countries of Africa. There's nothing really too special here. It's mostly just remembering where they are and everything. Togo and Gambia have specific markers where you can click because of how small they are, so it can be difficult to click normally. So they have a bit of a shaded region where if you click there, you can click it easier. Uh, there's not really a whole lot to say about this, and you'll find that also a bit later when we get into the regions where it's just all of the Western African countries, all the Eastern African countries, and so on. Another thing to note about with the hitboxes is the islands. As you can notice, like Cape Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, Mauritius, Comoros, and Seychelles, they all have uh, like boxes around them because it would be really difficult, obviously, to click on each individual island for this. And I'm also not really sure why, but um, the archipelago countries, like the ones that I just mentioned, are not included for the capitals quiz. However, they are included on the multiple choice one, which the first time that I tried it was a bit weird because I wasn't used to knowing what they were. But yeah, that's pretty much it for capitals. I don't really have much to say, other than I have a lot of respect for the people that can type all of them out because I can't spell most of these. Next is cities in Africa. This is just some of the major cities. Like, there's a lot in South Africa and Nigeria. Those are, I believe, the two most populated African nations. So in Nigeria, there's Kano, Ibadan, and Lagos. And in South Africa, there's Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban, as you can see. But yeah, just the cities. This is a really fun one. Africa physical features. It has a bunch of different rivers, lakes, oceans, mountains, everything, and even some more arbitrary stuff like the Horn of Africa, which is just the part that sticks out, and the Cape of Good Hope, which is, I believe, the most southern point. And it also includes some of the deserts and whatnot, the Strait of Gibraltar and the Mozambique Channel, which are both bodies of water that many ships travel through. This is just countries above the equator. Not much special about this. Uh, it's just the same as Africa countries, except about half of them are removed. And they all have a latitude of above 0, or at least I think it's the highest point of the country is above the equator. Moving to the southern countries, again, there isn't much special about this. If you didn't notice or aren't familiar, Lesotho is completely surrounded by South Africa. I don't really know why, but it is, and that's just a cool fact that I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't know if you just asked them on the street. This is where the categories get pretty short for a little while. It's just the countries and specific regions, and there isn't a whole lot to it. There's usually not a whole lot of elements. As you can see, I messed up the first question there, so luckily it was the first question, so it wasn't a major time loss, but it's what it is. Kigali and Gitega, the capitals of Rwanda and Burundi. I just get those two countries mixed up in just about everything, whether it be the flags or the capitals. And here's the countries themselves. On to the capitals and countries of Northern Africa. These are some of the countries in Africa that have the most, or they're the largest by area. Here's South Africa, some of the most populated countries, excluding Eswatini and Lesotho, obviously. This is Western Africa, and here there's the Gold Coast, which consists of all of the smaller nations that you can see on the left. And it also includes Nigeria and Mauritania, which I do not believe are part of the Gold Coast, but they're still pretty massive countries. Same with Mali and Niger. Here's where things get interesting. These are major cities in Egypt. This took a little while to memorize, especially because of some of the ones that are very similar, like, as you can see, Asyut and Aswan, and Alminya, and the other one that I can't remember the name of right now. Alminya and Al Mansura. Those are two that I got mixed up a lot, and also just there are many, like, they're grouped a lot, so I can get them mixed up that way. These are the states of Egypt. Again, nothing really special. It's a bit easier to memorize because a lot of states are named after the major cities that are in them, which I just did in the previous quiz. As you might have noticed, the area of each state is a little unbalanced, but I don't know. It's Egypt. That's everything from Egypt. A lot of I think the rest of the quizzes regarding individual countries are of South Africa. We have the cities, which have a really big mix of American and non-American, or not American, English and non-English names. But it gets a lot more complex, obviously, with the difficult version. Just adding more things really close to other ones becomes a bit more confusing. These are the states of Nigeria. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory, like Northwest and Eastern Cape. The rest of the ones that are mostly in the East are a little bit more difficult, but still pretty recognizable. These are the flags. I struggle on the flags a lot more, not because I don't know them per se, but because it's a lot more difficult to find them, because unlike the rest of the maps, the positions of each flag are generated every time. So it's never the same, really. And I still consider this one to be a lot better than most of them. And as you might have noticed, my times for a lot of these are in the 40-minute range, despite the fact this run is a lot shorter than that, and the reasoning behind that is if you have it running in another tab, which as you can see at the top of the screen, I obviously did, it continues count, and it's not a requirement to restart each map. So I just have it running for a little while I either practice other maps or try to do attempts, and it usually racks up quite a bit of time. I wasn't particularly proud of this flags run here, the Africa flags difficult, mostly because there were just a lot of times where I couldn't find it, like here, me trying to find the flag of the Central African Republic. But I still feel like I did pretty good overall here. It definitely could have been improved, but I'm still pretty proud of it. That's really all I have to say about flags. On the topic of the flags themselves, Africa has some of my favorite flags, especially the flag of Angola. It's there in the top middle of the screen, the red and black one. I don't really know why I like it so much. I just think it looks really cool. And same thing with Swaziland in the very bottom left. I just think that Africa, while it has some more bland flags, it also has some of the coolest and most complex ones. And I would say that it definitely makes it more fun and bearable to do this category. If you didn't notice, some of the flags do appear very similar, like Mali and Guinea, or Madagascar and Benin, which basically only have one color changed. And another interesting fact is Chad and Romania. Chad is an African country, however, Romania is a European country. They both have essentially the same flag, except Chad's is slightly darker than Romania's, and it makes it very difficult to distinguish if you're doing a quiz of all of the flags in the world. This is the multiple choice quiz I talked about briefly earlier. A fun fact about these quizzes is that if you press the skip button after getting a question right, it actually still skips the next question without actually taking anything off of your percentage. So you can get through these a lot faster, and it's just kind of funny. You wouldn't really expect there to be glitches in a game like this, but here we are. There is not a quiz for the county flags of Liberia. I really wish there was. The county flags of Liberia are pretty great. I can't lie about that. However, if you do attempt to skip on the last question or two, it can actually soft lock your game, which is not that great. Obviously, you'd have to restart the quiz. And another thing that I actually can't explain is that whenever you do restart a quiz, or not any quiz, but a multiple choice quiz like this, it actually reloads the page involuntarily, and it takes a little bit. So that's not great also. Yeah, we're coming up to the end of the run. I don't really have much else to say other than this is both a personal best and a world record by almost 2 minutes, and I am pretty proud of this run. Thank you for watching.
Alright, well, thanks a lot for that, zir0nic. Am I still muted? I am. Alright, thanks a lot for that, zir0nic. That was a pretty good one to end on, I imagine. Lots of people watching, lots of people commenting. New world record and new personal best. So yeah, awesome.
Thanks.